So, Bill, perhaps can you tell us where you're located actually?
I am in St. Louis, or as you might say, St. Louis, St. Louis, Missouri, in the U.S. here in the States.
Wow. How long time is it? 8 hours or difference with France? I guess we are 8 hours ahead from you.
You are 7 hours ahead from me, so it's 7 a.m. 7 a.m. for me here.
Yeah, it's something that we speak all often these times, that having this pandemic situation around the globe, we know that many people do live in a kind of new normal. This is something that we hear pretty often. So perhaps I will present you to our audience who some may know you, some people may know you, and some people will discover you. We know that some people are in direct with us, and also with the time zone, we will have people who will watch the replay. So I will introduce you. You made pretty good contribution, and specifically in medias, and you define yourself as a brand architect. Mm-hmm. So, and what I like that you about you is that you say that you're a master at unlocking the fearless potential in others. How is that?
How is that? Well, first of all, thank you, and thank you for having me here as your guest. It's really exciting to be a part of this global event. Well, give me a few minutes because it's not a quick answer. My ability to help people unlock their potential has to do with my experience of my own discovery, self-discovery, but it also has to do with an ability to be able to hold the mirror up for people so that they can see themselves in a different light, because all too often that's what holds us back, myself included. So my career has been in branding, which is communicating the value of things. And so I've been asked by a couple of people, they've looked at the event and they said, okay, you're a branding guy, how do you fit into this whole thing? So I'm going to take just a few moments, Sophie, if you'll indulge me, just to kind of explain that, because let's start with what branding is. Branding is two parts. There's our brand, which is very simply the value that we have and the value that we offer to the public. And a brand can be a company, it can be a product, it can be a service. But most importantly, from my perspective, a brand can be a person. So I love dealing in personal branding. So my work focuses on people, whether it's one-to-one or whether it's working with a company. It's how do the people fit in and what's their value. So the second part of branding is brand messaging. Once we know our value, how do we communicate that? So when I speak with people, and I'm going to focus on people for the conversation today, rather than company, but it applies across any brand. It's very simply a matter of having them understand that they need to discover their true value, both to themselves, how do they value themselves, and what value do they bring to others. And that's where I focus, and that's where I work with people to help them understand what their strengths are. I help them to get clarity as to what they want to accomplish. And part of what I do is ask them this question: what's the point?
What's the point? I love that. Indeed, what's the point? Yes.
And that's a question that can be asked, it can't be asked too often, but if someone says, if I say, tell me about what yourself, and they say, well, I want to become a doctor, I will say, what's the point? And they might say, because I want to make a lot of money. And I'll say, well, what's the point? Or they might say, because I want to save lives. So that question, what's the point, is something that we can all ask ourselves time and again, just to drill deeper so we can get a more true picture.
Yeah, and what has motivated, what has animated us from inside. And yes, And just to let to the people know also about you, is that so not only do you help people to, let's say, to attend their higher potential, and you also have a weekly blog, and that's what I wanted to mention to the people, knowing that you're helping people to discover their point, their motivation, also sometimes their identity. You created several channels to communicate about that and to help as much people as possible to reflect about this very important topic, because we talking to customers, clients, audience, we want the people to reach the point they want to reach. And sometimes we don't know exactly what they want to reach. So it's already an important thing to know what we want to reach, when we can meet the desire of the people. So your weekly blog, Friday's Fearless Brand, so is following around the globe. And so you do highlight core elements of brands, whether people, places, or organizations that you do consider to be fearless. So would you like to talk also perhaps how the way you do spread your own word, your own message to the world? So I wanted also to mention that this Friday's Fearless Brand is the foundation for a book, which also became more than a book. It became kind of movement, it seems, on a podcast named Women Who Won.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do have a book next to you, but maybe later in the interview, if you want to show us the book, if you do have it with you, or we can send to the people a screenshot. I may have it in my, and I can share for a moment my screen to show your book, which is powerful words written on it already.
Okay. Well, I don't think I have one handy, but I guess I should always carry one, right?
we have it for you on the screen in that case.
Well, good. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the blog, Friday's Fearless Brand, has been on a bit of a hiatus, to be honest. It's not been weekly for some time, but as of recently, I have launched a weekly podcast, which has the same concept. So what's behind the blog? Very simply, we all learn better from stories. And rather than me try to create stories, because I'm just not that creative, it occurred to me some time ago, with some encouragement from an amazing wife who holds the mirror up to me, that what would be a way to help people understand how to find their own brand value is to write a blog in the form of stories. So what I did was I started to highlight individual brands. Some were companies, some were individuals. I've done cartoon characters.
Really?
I've done a country, the UAE, which is a brand. And so the purpose of that was to in a very entertaining and hopefully educational way, give people insight into something or somebody they may not know that much about, but then draw the commonalities from that person or that product or that brand in a way that hopefully people can relate it to themselves. So by example, I've written about, who comes to mind? Hugh Jackman. None of us are going to be a global, very few of us are going to be a globally acclaimed actor. But there's a lot about Hugh Jackman that we can look at and that we can look for those traits in ourselves and learn how to apply them to better reach our goals and our potential.
Thank you. And so you had many people that you did interview along your way. And do you have a specific event in your life that made you come at that point to help people to give birth to their brand, who to improve their brand? Is that something that led you to become the coach, the master, the guide for us about that?
Yeah, thank you. I like the word guide best of all from what you've just discussed, because my purpose, what's my point, is not to give people answers, but to help them along the path of finding their own answers and maybe helping them adjust the questions they ask themselves to do that. So was there an event in my life? There's probably been a lot of events in my life, but yeah, I transitioned probably, Sophie, 16 or 17 years ago from the corporate world to working on my own. And there was a significant amount of event around that. And so what that, switching from, changing from, transforming from a corporate person to a solopreneur or working on my own was a significant change. So that gave me the opportunity and almost forced my hand to start looking at myself and start saying, okay, what about your last 25 years was not satisfying? And why did it take you 25 years to figure out that it wasn't satisfying? So it's kind of a self-discovery that has allowed me to, in turn, take my learning of myself and help other people to hopefully have the same success by going down that path. So I guess the event that's got me to where I am now is called life, my life.
Yes, this is what we often hear, but also is from like in a core. Most of the time, when we change our professional life, going from perhaps a more corporate life to coaching life or guiding people to perhaps, I don't know, gaining time, gaining energy, or gaining space. Why not? To make it shorter than we had perhaps to find ourselves, our inner core, let's say our message, our point, as you say. And it's very interesting. Most of the people who do change life to accompany others, it comes from a questioning, a deep questioning of, oh, who am I? Or what do I really want? Or what don't I want anymore? Yes, thank you that you share that with us.
Yeah, you're most welcome. So that's one event, but we all have life events that come along. Some of them are really joyous. I just heard one this morning that just made my heart smile, and I'll keep that private. But so there are beautiful, wonderful events that we're all blessed with. But all of us have challenges, and all of us have things that just sometimes just knock us over because we don't know how or why it happened. And what I have learned is what makes that worthwhile is not looking at it and saying, oh, darn, that happened, how terrible, but to say, why did it happen? What can I learn from it? And so I have enough events in my life, many of them self-generated, that didn't go the way I wanted to, that's allowed me the opportunity to say, that didn't work, why? And that gets us to, I think, more along the line of personal development, and I think appropriate most to your 3-day event. You must be exhausted, but healing the family tree. It starts with what's my role in it, because all too often, I know I was guilty of this and still am to some degree, of pointing the finger elsewhere, for looking at the cause of issues outside of myself.
Yes.
And if I can understand my brand, meaning my value, then I can look at myself and say, what's my role in this? What did I do that led to this? What could I have done differently? And that's where we can start to really get some healing in our lives, in the family tree or beyond.
Yes, and thank you that you said so beautifully and with a lot of insights in it. And indeed, this is 3 days, but this is also our point. We want to share information and resources with people so that they can really perhaps having, why not, conversations with friends or family members or with themselves, why not? And we have people asking questions. So, and people are waiting for perhaps ideas, having inspiration, hope and inspiration. The other 2 words that are driving us on this summit is hope, inspiration. We can do something when we want to change or transform or just, why not, just improve. And today, yes, I did not mention that way, but you do represent, of course, your own voice, And also the voice of the brands and the voice of the people who are meeting the brands. So yes, thank you again that you are with us today and that you put the point outside of you to see, as you say, so what can I do? What may I have to heal to feel in a better place, perhaps? Does it happen sometimes that with some of your clients, it can be corporates or individuals or, I don't know, startups? Does it happen sometimes that you can have a more personal discussion, speaking about values and the family story behind the values of the people?
Mhm. A great question, and thank you. So when I say that when it comes to branding, I focus on people, even when I'm working with companies. To me, it comes down to, so most companies look at themselves as a brand and they like their logo and they like their website and all of that's fine. That's brand messaging. But what really comprises your brand and what too many companies overlook, and the company I worked for a long time got to this point, they overlook the fact that what really comprises a company brand is its people.
Yeah.
So a company's people are their greatest asset when it comes to building a brand, because face it, one employee can totally destroy a reputation and a brand with one or more people by their actions. So what we need to do is make sure that companies and in turn individuals understand what their value is so that we can place them in the best position for themselves and in turn for our company. So to
That's a
me,
good
where
point.
it starts is this. Everything starts with, what are your core values? You, the individual. And if it's a company, then it starts with the CEO or it starts with whatever manager. It's, what are the core values of this company? What are the core values of you, the founder of this? And we have to understand what those 3 or 4, maybe 5 core values are so that we can use them as our touchstone and live by them. So that's what I did not do in my corporate career.
Mhm.
I did not say, here are my core values, and I seek them in the company I work for.
Huh.
Because if I have core values and I'm working someplace with a company or with people that don't share those core values, there's automatically tension and in turn potential problems in that, friction, if you will.
Mhm.
And so whether it's an individual working with themselves, working on themselves, or whether it's a company, whether it's family, whatever the case is, it's, what are our core values, and are we putting ourselves in a position that we can remain true to those core values?
Mm.
And that go ahead.
Yeah, no, in the same time, people do ask questions. So thank you. And then I do suggest that we can take the questions and then giving answers. Perhaps after, in the end of the interview, we'll take a compromise. We'll take a moment to respond to your questions, except if, I don't know, Bill, how you prefer. Do you prefer to have the questions when they arrive? By the way, I'll give you the choice because we're so happy that you have you with
Oh.
us. You prefer having the questions when they come, or it will be a moment in the end of the interview? What do you prefer?
I will leave that to you very simply, because I'm happy to answer the questions whenever they're asked and whatever is asked. So I'll just leave it to you because I can't see the questions. So I want whoever's viewing to know that I can't see them. But so the question to me is it a question that is relevant to the point that we're making right then? Or is it more of
Yes.
a general question that can be delayed? So if I say the sky is blue and someone wants to question that, then we should do it right at that point.
Okay. Yes, this is Sandrine who says, so in French, I will translate my best. So how to repair a person who created a bad image about the business, even if the person is no longer into the business? Meaning, how can we repair after someone created a problem, even if the person left the business? How can we repair such a problem of communication? I don't know which kind of problem it was, but then it gave a bad image about the business.
Well, yeah, so I think that's building off the example I gave earlier, where one employee might be able to give such a bad image. And so it takes an incredibly long time and consistent diligence to build a reputation, to build a brand, to put out there the value that one is going to expect and receive by interacting with us, be it business or whatever. So if one person kind of crushes that with one or more people, then we're get into damage control and crisis management, if you will. But the big point I want to make is that's why it's so important to pay attention to all elements of our brand, including people, because it takes forever to build a reputation and to maintain that. It takes constant diligence, but it can be undercut in a matter of one bad phone call or one bad interaction. And then it's a matter of starting over and building and going back and saying, what of our core values weren't met? Where did we fall short? First of all, how do we rectify the damage with the people that were damaged? Yeah. And that might be a customer in a store, or that might be a horrible news article that's gone to the global network, and you have to do that. And there are certainly experts in that regard that can help. By example, that's the business my wife is in, communications and brand. Working to keep reputation management anyway. But so it's a matter of recognizing that there's an issue, and with anything saying, okay, what happened that went wrong? What can we and what should we address immediately? Sometimes the answer is nothing. But what we can do is say, how do we avoid this from happening in the future? And it might have to do with better understanding how we hire, how we train, how we manage, how we embrace our employees. It might have to do with any number of things. So there's no quick fix.
But a list of questions, and I thank you because it's all relevant. And I hope something is answered your question. You can let us know when you want. And Bill, it leads me to this question. So when people come to you, clients, is there a percentage, is there a balance between people who are building a new brand and people who want to improve an existing brand?
There's a difference in where they are in their brand journey. The principles of branding apply at any point along that journey. So it started there's kind of what I call vision casting, and there's a little thing on brandingpillars.com that speaks to this. It starts with, where are you now? Where would you like to go? What happens if where have you been? What's gotten you to this point? What does it take to get where you want to go? And what happens if you don't do that? So it's a matter of starting with discovery, starting with evaluation. Where are you and where do you want to go? It's kind of that simple. And it's going to maybe have different questioning or a different approach depending on the stage of the journey. If it's a startup, they won't have arguably as much history, but they will. And it's a matter of saying very simply, where are you and where do you want to go and what do we have to do to get there?
Thank you. So indeed, when you ask these questions, it seems to be simple questions, powerful, because sometimes we even don't think about how to re-evaluate, when to recalibrate our trajectory, why not? Mm-hmm. And so it's a very good point and a very good introduction to speak more about the 5 branding pillars that you created, even as a whole website, www.brandingpillars.com. So, right. And thank you, Celine. I can say Celine is the voice of our audience, and she already put, the websites in the chat so people can already have them indirectly.
Well, thanks to you and thanks to her. So very simply, there's a process that I use to help discover what's the point, meaning what's the value of your brand, what are you trying to do? And there is a brand self-audit on that website if people are interested. And then it also gets into the 5 pillars. So the 5 pillars are the 5 elements that, in my experience, are critical to supporting brands, be it company brand or personal brand. And those pillars are leadership, behavior, communication, influence, and team. So if we understand what's the point, then we can assess those areas and say, where am I strong? Where can I get stronger? Where are my shortcomings and can I address them? So when it comes to leadership, by example, we're all leaders in some role, some shape. And leadership very simply is having the ability to motivate a group of people towards accomplishing a common goal. So when you put it in, it's not like being the boss that says, do this, do that. It's more a motivational thing. Behavior, yeah, behavior is tantamount because behavior is tangible. Behavior can be seen, it can be heard, or it can be felt. That's it. And that makes behavior. So people see behavior. What they interpret from our behavior is kind of up to them. So we have to understand how we're behaving and what our behavior means, because we all have different tendencies. We all behave differently, and that leads into communication.
Indeed.
Because we all communicate differently. And you can kind of get a sense now that I communicate by going on and on and on. Other people communicate in very short bullet points. And the more I can understand how I communicate, the better I can assess who I'm communicating with and try to adjust my style so that they can better receive my communication.
Exactly. And then there are different kind of communications. Communicating on a website, there is no emotion behind. We create our own emotions behind the words, behind the images, behind colors, or also the way it has been written, the chosen writing. And when we do interact, for example, like right now, we know that communication, some say around 10% is verbal communication, or 20%, and the other 80% is the body language, is the tone of the voice, is that the eyes movement, and so on. So two really different kind of communications, which is online, written. So this is the world of words and images, and the one when we do interact. Does it happen that you can give advices and that you guide people through these two different kind of communications?
Yeah, and so that's a fabulous point because it's so important. And let me just step back on the studies there show that. So there's verbal communication, and then there's nonverbal communication, and then there's tone. So the words are what I call verbal. How we say them, the tone is different, because I can say, this is a fabulous event, or I can say, this is a fabulous event. And it's going to have a different communication, right? So that's tone. But then the nonverbal communication, the eyes, the body language, how we look, our eye rolls, how we react. So when it comes to the studies on that, the suggestion is that 50% in normal communication, 50% of our communication is delivered in the nonverbal manner.
Yeah.
Nonverbal and tone. However, that can go up to as much as 90% of our communication can be nonverbal. Oh, wow. If there's emotion involved, if there's either tremendous excitement or tremendous friction. So then it becomes or yay, one way or the other. And so yes, the number, I say that just because the numbers on that are quoted so many different ways, and that changes. But the point is, what's the point? The point is, sorry, the point is to understand that our nonverbal communication is equally important to our verbal communication. And you made a real good point. Emojis came about, why? Because there's no emotion in words, in the written word, in particular when it's sent electronically through technology. So that's why emojis came in, so that as humans, we can add that little nonverbal, we can add that tone, we can add that little emphasis, because you can make a sentence that says, this is great, and again, that can have a ton of different meanings. So emojis came out so you could put a smiley face, or you could put a frowny face, or just to help create that communication.
Indeed.
But the biggest thing about communication, and I apologize, I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but it's not me. But the uh, the biggest misconception about communication is the idea that it took place. So what that means is I have a message, I put it out there, and I just assume everyone got the message that I sent out the way I intended them to get the message. And that's rarely the case. So when it comes to communication is at the heart of most everything, and it's the center pillar in my work. So
Yes, thank you. And you were describing to us the leadership pillar. So, and then it led us to speak about communication. So how can we motivate people? And this is what led us to speak about the kind of communication and the verbal, non-verbal. And so, yes, leadership. Maybe I can let you lead us to go through the pillars, and then that we can understand the way you help people to build their brand or to make it even better.
well, the way I work with people is very simply to ask questions, to look to discover and to gain information and insight, which is one of the reasons I've created the self-audit that I just mentioned, because people can ask themselves questions. And the very first question on it is, I know my core values.
Mhm.
And it's strongly agree down to strongly disagree. And so once we do that, we can start to, and then so it does that for the what's the point section. And then there's a section of questions for each of the 5 pillars. And it starts to identify areas within those pillars. And this is on our self-evaluation that say, I'm great at this, or I really need help on this. And that's a starting point of assessing. The whole point is, where are we? We have to know where we are before we know where we're going. Or we have to know where we are so that we know how to get to where we want to go. I mean, I can say I want to come back to Paris. I love Paris. But if I don't know where I am, or the timing, or all of the other factors, then how can I really get there? It's got to start with where are you, to know where you are, to understand where to go. So the biggest thing is asking questions, and then looking at the answers and asking more questions.
Okay, so this is an art to ask questions, and it seems that you do have this art to ask questions to your clients. And when people take assessment on your website, so they go through the 5 pillars to reflect about, so leadership, and then perhaps you can name them to us again, that before the people, because they will find it back on your website, but then I think maybe we can go through them a little bit.
Sure. So leadership is first, and then behavior, because there's individual behavior, there's company behavior, and there's employee behavior within the company, and then there's actual communication, and then there's influence, because we all want to influence people one way or the other. And understand, influence does not in any way, shape, or form mean manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
Influence is, to me, the opposite of manipulating. As a good friend of mine and the co-author of the book, The Go-Giver, Bob Berg, says, influence is a matter of pull, not push.
Huh.
Influence is pull, not push. And then the 5th element is team. How do you work as a team? How does your team work? Is there trust amongst the team? That's the first layer. So I work on trust through a system that came from Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And the work is the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. So in each of those areas, there are different, depending on what needs to be done, there are different tools that can be brought to the table. So in the terms of leadership, there are informational talks, there are one-on-one coaching, there's some evaluations that can be done in the area of behavior. Leading into communication, I do a lot of work on a product called Extended DISC, which is a behavioral assessment.
Indeed.
And it helps. Extended disc gives us insight as to how we tend to behave naturally, but also how we tend to behave in business. And we adjust that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to know that. And that starts to get into, are you living your core values in both areas, in your personal arena as well as in your work arena? And if there's a strong discrepancy there in the behavior that you're comfortable with and the behavior you think you have to bring forth at work, there's an issue. That also leads to communication. I mean, a leader is going to be able to say, they've got to motivate a group of people towards a common goal, right? So how do you do that? It's not by beating them over the head and saying, we will do it this way, although that's what a lot of people think leadership is. And it may be, we have to get this done. But then it's where do you go from there? So here's how we're going to do it and why. And depending on who it is you're communicating with, trying to move along this path to commonality and achieving a goal, you might have to spend a lot more time with a certain type of behavior that resists change, like myself, than you might with someone who tends to behave more like, hey, let's go, let's try something new. And they're going to be right. So it's understanding those. And that also leads to influence. How can we influence people? How can we get the best from them? Which in turn leads to team. So in team, I work with the Patrick Lencioni platform. Behavior is DISC.
Yes, but the great thing is that DISC is well known from around the world. I mean, some people in Europe, they also know very well the DISC and use them. Does it happen to you that you can have some clients from Europe? I don't know. Did you already work with clients from Europe? Does it happen that you can travel, or perhaps do people travel to see you and taking the assessment with you? Except these days, of course, but do you work with foreign countries?
100%. The first example that pops into mind when you mention Europe is just about a year ago, I traveled to Sofia, Bulgaria, and worked with a gentleman in his company there on behavior and communication. I've done some work in Dubai, which is, as you know, where my wife lives, so I'm there frequently. But yeah, I'm very open to working with anyone, anywhere, anytime, and that's the beauty of technology. And that's one of the real gifts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything great about this pandemic. But again, the question is, what can we learn from this? What has been the learning? What has been the benefit? And part of it is that people more than ever are comfortable using technology, even if it's not their first choice. But it's gotten us more comfortable to realizing that it's a valid way to communicate and to conduct business. So I think that's gone a long way. That being forced into technology has gone a long way into making the world a smaller place, because now I can speak with someone in Paris and have someone in the Middle East and other places around the world listen in and be comfortable in doing it and know how to access that.
Yes, it is a great point. Thank you. And it does lead me to this question, because you're working with different people from different countries. What about the cultural difference? Does it intervene into your work with people about their brands and the messages and the point? Does it intervene, the cultural effect?
Well, that's an area that I have to be very cognizant of. And that's an area that I have to be even more diligent in my discovery. So there's the culture, and I'll stick with Bulgaria. The culture there was different than the culture I'm used to and that I live in here in the States. The background of that country, the history of that country, there's just different expectations, different standards, and different norms. I had to understand that. I have to understand that their way, I don't want to come in there like the typical ugly American and say, okay, here's the way you do it, and it's the only way to do it because it works for us. You know, there's been too much of that. But what is important, and Sophie, you make a brilliant point, is to recognize the cultural differences. And that's the same thing, that boils down to the same point I make when I talk about a company understanding its employees. All of its employees are different to some degree or another. So it's a matter of understanding that. We were in meetings with this company in Sofia, and we ended up, and my wife was with me working at that point. We were doing one-on-one, 1-hour coaching sessions. And we were explaining to this one young lady her potential and how she had all of this skill that she could bring to the table that she'd never given herself credit for. And we're trying to help her, and my wife's phrase, hold the mirror. We were trying to help her understand that. And we're in the room and the girl's just doing this. And I'm thinking, why is she rejecting this? And my wife is thinking, why is she rejecting this? And I looked at the company owner who I know pretty well. And after she left, he goes, oh, this means yes here. Really?
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
I have to trust him that he is being genuine in his response, but I never would have thought that. So yes, it's a matter of understanding that there are different cultures, different norms, and different behaviors. And working there, it's up to me to understand that. It's not up to them to conform to what I do.
Well, it's also a mutual learning, right? Because we are all emitting and receiving. So it's also a meeting between two cultures, and it's okay to learn about, because even if we don't go in a new country and we don't communicate, we cannot really learn about. Okay, of course we can find books, we can have many things online actually. So, but sometimes, I mean, perhaps you can know about that means yes. And I guess in other countries in Asia, that means no. So,
oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
See?
Yeah. So meaning it's a dance also, meeting each other and allowing that we can. It's okay to ask questions, and then so as you did. So you did, and you understood that it was not that she was not receiving, but and perhaps someone can also be shy at some point. But let's say it's very interesting times for us all that we learn about the difference in our cultures. And indeed, this is what, as you said, this is a chance. This is one of the positive sides of this global pandemic, that we can learn more about each other, because we are. Indeed, you are now in America, in St. Louis. We are here located in French Alps, and some people watch us so from Switzerland, from Dubai, probably from Canada at that time, it's possible. And many people will watch a replay from around the world. Yeah. United Kingdom, you see, and another place in California. So it's a good point that you can say that we meet cultures, and that you ask the question and you receive the answer, and it's okay to ask questions. And thank you, Bill, that you gave this example, because sometimes we can misunderstand someone and thinking something is going wrong when it's not. So
yeah. And that's true. And that gets back to the quote that the biggest myth about communication is the belief that it occurred. So I'm receiving communication when she's doing this, and she might be thinking, okay, anyway, it's we have to make sure we're communicating on the same wavelength with the same meaning. And exactly. And the other thing too is, there are different behaviors, but even different nonverbals mean different things in different areas. So in some countries, you better not look straight in someone's eye, and in other countries, if you're not, they're wondering what's wrong with you. So it's also, so there's so many things to learn and to know. And to me, it's exciting and it's fascinating, and it's we can learn so much and apply it to ourselves if we're open to doing that.
Yes, thank you so much. And people can see that you have your two websites, so branding pillars, so for the people working on the frame of their brand and on what is their offer and for which reason, which audience. And then the second one, branding for results, because of course we want to measure the result of our actions. And there is one measure which may be, of course, for a product or for a service, people buying the product or the service, are they? Can you describe to us a little bit how can we measure, other than these 2 points, a success of a brand?
That's a great question, and I wish there were a short, simple answer, but I don't believe there is. I think when we measure the success of, there's any number of metrics that different people will use to measure that. So we need to start with an understanding of how are you defining brand? Because some people define it differently. There's so many people, so many companies that I speak with, and they say, I'm good with my brand. Look at this logo, it's beautiful. Well, fine, that's not your brand. So it has to do, there's any number, again, of metrics. It can business, it can have to do with sales, it can have to do with customer retention. There can be surveys to say what people think of you. You can try to do research to say, here's, asking the questions that'll let people tell us that they either are buying into and agreeing with what we think our reputation and our value and our brand is, or they don't, and they think, and then we have to rethink. So the branding for results.com website was my first website. And the purpose of that is really more informational. It's somewhat of a information resource, just to say, here are the various elements of branding, and here's what it comprises, and here's what I see it. And so it covers some of the elements I use, like the Go Giver and what that's all about. The branding pillars is more of the tactical, put into action kind of, these are the steps we take. So they really go together. But trying to put that all on one website, I felt was just way too much. So how do we measure the success of our brand? Any number of ways, and that's something that has to be worked out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then I do invite people to discover more about you and your purpose and your work, so through your websites. And also, you can find again the bio of Bill Ellis on the website, also of the summit, so healingthefamilytree.com. And you will find back all the links for your social medias. People can reach you out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, of course, the website. So I do encourage you to go and read all this amazing information and all the podcasts you created again. So don't hesitate, and we can find them, all your podcasts, we can find them on branding pillars.com. Is it true?
Yeah, brandingpillars.com. There's a tab for podcast, and on that you can either listen to them from my website, or you can the four of the biggest platforms are there, where you can just link directly to the one that you choose, and I'd love it if you subscribed.
Yes, we'll do so with pleasure. We'll invite people to do so again, and that we can learn so much about the interviews that I've done. So here, let's say the two core, what's the point of the summit is hope and inspiration. So people don't hesitate to go and listen to the interviews that Bill Ellis gave with very interesting people. That inspiration will come for sure. It's a beautiful way of sharing inspiration. And what I can do right now is to share my screen to show your book. So Women Who Won. Nikki is our amazing translator from English to French for also the French communities. And she kept saying to me, Sophie, women, because I said woman. And she said, no, this is women who won. So it's a hello to Nikki, and Women Who Won. Stories of courage, confidence, vision, and determination. Wow.
So that book, and you mentioned this, and thank you for showing that. It's so kind of you and your entire team. Thanks, everybody, because I know it takes a lot of people to put something like this on. That book is a collection of Friday's Fearless Brand blogs that I've written specific about females. And my purpose for doing that started because I was asked to give a workshop on branding, personal branding for women in banking. And I don't really differentiate by gender or anything else, but I did think that it was important. I went back and read all of the blogs I'd written about women just to learn different traits. But that happened to come out at a great time because you know, there's also a womenwhowon.com website. I've got a million websites. But on there, there's a great interview that talks to why I wrote the book. And I was asked, who do you want to read this? Who would you like to read this? And my answer, and I mean it to this day, is I would prefer, if I had a choice, I would like all men to read this book. Because I think men need to be enlightened as to the talent and the skill and the hardships and the obstacles that are overcome with diligence and courage and just determination, everything that's on the cover there, courage and confidence and vision. And it's amazing. And so from the time that book came out till now, what's happened is there's a Me Too movement that started. The United States now has a female vice president for the first time ever, yay. And the whole point and importance and awareness of women's skills, talent, and the need for that to be a part of, not in lieu of men, but teaming. We're stronger together. So thanks for showing that.
No, thank you so much too. And it's also what I discovered about you is that you also gain your inspiration from your family that you cherish, as you say, even in your bio, and that you wrote that this book was also inspired by your two granddaughters. Twin granddaughters, and I really liked very much about that. So I wanted to give you credit for that. It's beautiful to feel that in our world, our family they are part of our roots, but also part of our inspiration and strength. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. They are truly a gift to me and to my son and to everyone. They're just fabulous little girls.
Yeah, we can just imagine that due to the accomplishments, we can check on your website and your stories that you share with people in your interviews and podcasts. Bill, we'd like to stay with you, and it may require another summit to have you again, and that we can continue the conversation about brands and how we can improve our messages and what's the point about what we do. And we want to thank you so much that you said yes to our invitation. And we just wish the best, to you, to your family. Thank you to your wife, Tara, to be with us today. Say hello. And I wish someday to continue the conversation.
Well, thank you for asking me. The fact that we combined or that we met because of a book, and that one I happen to have handy because I was talking about it yesterday.
Yes.
Our book, Bright Spots,
Indeed, thank you.
One of the bright spots of this book was getting to meet Sophie and 38 other contributors, all with a brilliant message. So thank you to Kathy Davis for coordinating that. But it just goes to show the more open we are to meeting new people and hearing new things, the better off we're all going to be. So I'm truly grateful that you asked me. And if you have another summit, I'm in. I promise, and we'll stay in touch. We'll stay. It won't take a summit, because we'll stay in touch without that. Either way, okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you that you bought the book. By the way, it is behind me. You are the one who made it. You are such a bright spot. Thank you for that, and we wish you a beautiful day. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much, and thank everyone for listening. And you saw my contact information. Use it if you'd like to. Thanks.
We'll do so. We'll invite people to do so. Thank you, Bill. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. You bet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.